My wife said, "My work husband is staying in our guest room for a week. Don't be jealous." I replied, "Hospitality is key." Then I emailed her CEO about their office affair with photos I hired a PI to take, when both of them were escorted out of the building by security. Quick setup. I'm 34 and own a concrete contracting business. Started with one truck and a dream. Now I've got 40 employees and contracts all over the state. Good money, solid reputation, and I earned every dollar through sweat and 16-hour days. My wife Vanessa is 31 and works as a senior compliance officer at this big regional bank. Makes decent money, but nothing compared to what my company pulls in. We've been married 6 years, together 8 total. No kids yet because she kept saying she wanted to focus on her career first. Now Vanessa's always been ambitious, clawed her way up from teller to management in less than 5 years. I respected that hustle, but somewhere along the way, she started getting ideas above her station, talking down to me like manual labor was beneath her college education, making snide comments about blue-collar work when her friends came over. I let it slide because business was booming, and I didn't have energy for drama. Big mistake. About 8 months ago, she started talking about this new guy at work. Marcus something. Recently divorced? Harvard MBA? Fast track to executive level. Everything I apparently wasn't. At first it was innocent enough. Marcus had great insights during meetings. Marcus suggested this restaurant she should try. Marcus thought she was wasting her potential in compliance and should move to investment banking. Red flags everywhere, but I was dealing with 3 major construction projects and barely sleeping. Plus, Vanessa wasn't exactly subtle about her dissatisfaction with our marriage. Figured if she wanted out, she'd just say so like an adult. Wrong again. The Marcus mentions escalated fast. Late-night texts about work emergencies, weekend calls that couldn't wait until Monday, happy hours that turned into dinners that turned into bar crawls with the team. When I'd ask about these events, Vanessa would get defensive. Said I was being controlling and paranoid. That professional networking was part of her job. That I wouldn't understand the pressures of corporate life, since I just hit things with hammers all day. Charming woman I married. 3 months ago, things got weird. Vanessa started dressing differently for work, designer outfits that cost more than most people's rent, new haircuts every few weeks, gym memberships at fancy places across town, all to maintain her professional image, apparently. She also became obsessed with our house. Suddenly nothing was good enough. The kitchen needed renovating. The furniture was embarrassing. We needed to hire an interior designer to make the place presentable for entertaining. I pointed out that we never entertained anyone except her prissy work friends who looked down their noses at everything anyway. She said that was exactly the problem, that I didn't understand how important appearances were in her industry. Whatever. I had the money and keeping her happy seemed easier than fighting. Wrote checks for 30 grand worth of upgrades without blinking. My mistake was thinking this would satisfy her. Instead, it made everything worse. Now she was embarrassed by me too. Started making excuses for why I couldn't come to her work events. Said the other wives were all lawyers and doctors and wouldn't know what to talk about with a contractor. The disrespect was unreal, but I was neck deep in a casino project and didn't have bandwidth to deal with her attitude. Figured we'd sort it out after I finished that job. Then came last Monday's announcement. I walked into the kitchen after a long day pouring foundations and found Vanessa setting the table for 3. Fancy plates, wine glasses, the whole production. "What's the occasion?" I asked. "Oh, I forgot to mention," she said without looking up. "Marcus is staying in our guest room this week. His apartment flooded and he needs somewhere to crash while they fix everything." Just like that. No discussion. No asking if I was comfortable with another man living in our house. Just an announcement that her work boyfriend was moving in temporarily. I stood there for a minute processing this information. "You forgot to mention that your coworker is moving into our house?" "It's not a big deal," she said with that condescending tone she'd perfected. "We're colleagues, friends. It's just professional courtesy. Don't be jealous." That word hit like a slap. Jealous. Like I was some insecure loser who couldn't handle his wife having male friends. "Hospitality is key," I said calmly. "When's he arriving?" She looked surprised by my response. Probably expected an argument. Around 7, I thought we could order from that Thai place you like. Marcus showed up right on time. Tall, lean, expensive suit, handshake like a dead fish. Exactly what you'd expect from a Harvard MBA who'd never done physical labor in his life. He was overly polite in that fake way rich people talk to service workers. Thanked me repeatedly for the accommodation, said he'd try not to be an imposition, promised to be the perfect house guest, all while looking around our renovated house like he was appraising it for auction. Dinner was awkward as hell. Vanessa and Marcus talked shop the entire time. Banking regulations and investment strategies and other boring corporate garbage. They had inside jokes and finished each other's sentences. Completely excluded me from the conversation. When I tried to contribute anything, they'd listen politely, then pivot back to their work world, like I was a child interrupting adult conversation. After dinner, Marcus excused himself to make some calls. Vanessa started clearing dishes and I offered to help. That went well, she said brightly. See, I told you it wouldn't be weird. I just nodded and loaded the dishwasher. No point arguing when she was already rewriting reality. That first night I lay in bed listening to them talk downstairs until almost midnight, voices getting quieter and more intimate as the wine kicked in. When Vanessa finally came to bed, she smelled like his cologne. Tuesday was worse. Came home to find them cooking dinner together. Marcus had apparently run to the grocery store and picked up ingredients for some fancy pasta dish. They were laughing and touching each other's arms while they worked. Vanessa never cooked for me anymore. Said she was too tired after work. But here she was playing house with her colleague like newlyweds. Wednesday, I decided to test something. Called Vanessa around lunch and asked if she wanted to grab dinner somewhere nice. Just the two of us. She said she couldn't because Marcus was having a rough day and needed moral support. Moral support, right. That evening I came home to candles and soft music. They'd opened a bottle of wine that cost more than most people's car payments. Vanessa was wearing a dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. When I walked in, they jumped apart like teenagers caught making out. Both started talking at once about work stress and needing to decompress. So much nervous energy you could cut it with a knife. I excused myself and went to my home office. Started making some calls of my own. See, the thing about running a successful business is you develop certain skills. Reading people, spotting lies, knowing when someone's trying to screw you over. And you learn to protect your interests before problems get out of hand. I called a private investigator I'd used for employee background checks. Guy named Rodriguez. Former cop, very thorough, understood the importance of documentation. Explained the situation without getting emotional. Wife's coworker staying in our house, suspicious behavior. Needed proof of what was actually happening. Rodriguez said he could have someone on it by Thursday morning. Discreet surveillance of public areas only. Photos of them together at restaurants and hotels. License plate tracking when they left the house together. All completely legal since they'd be in public spaces. Cost me $2,000, but that's pocket change compared to what a messy divorce would run. Plus, I had a feeling this investment would pay dividends. Thursday morning, I left for work, same as always. Kissed Vanessa goodbye and told Marcus to make himself at home. They both seemed relieved when my truck pulled out of the driveway. Around noon, Rodriguez called with an update. His guy had followed them to work and documented them arriving together. Then he'd waited outside the bank and caught them leaving for an extended lunch at some romantic restaurant across town. The afternoon reports were enlightening. Lots of hand-holding and intimate conversation during lunch. Then they'd return to the bank together. The PI couldn't see inside the building, but bank employees later told investigators about suspicious behavior and closed-door meetings. That evening they came home together again. I was already there, sitting on the couch watching TV like nothing was wrong. How was work? I asked cheerfully. Busy, Vanessa said quickly. Lots of meetings, really stressful. Marcus nodded along. Banking never stops, always fires to put out. I smiled and went back to my show. Let them sweat a little, wondering if I suspected anything. Friday morning, I got the call I'd been expecting. Rodriguez had everything we needed. Photos of them together at multiple restaurants and hotels over several days. Timestamps showing them leaving work together during business hours. clear documentation of inappropriate behavior. But here's where I got lucky. Rodriguez had also noticed something interesting during his surveillance. Vanessa and Marcus had been meeting with a third party at various locations. Guy in an expensive suit carrying briefcases. Always cash transactions. Turned out this third party was a private banker who specialized in offshore accounts. Rodriguez had photographed license plates and done some research. The guy had a history of helping wealthy clients hide money from authorities. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was planning something much bigger that involved moving serious money. Rodriguez sent everything to my secure email by 10 a.m. High-resolution photos. Clear audio recordings from directional microphones. Bank security footage from their lunch dates. A complete timeline of their affair and criminal conspiracy. I sat in my truck in a parking lot reviewing everything. The disrespect was staggering. Not only was Vanessa betraying our marriage, she was stupid enough to plan financial crimes with her lover in our own house. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was excited, because these idiots had just handed me the perfect weapon to destroy both their lives simultaneously. First call was to the bank's ethics hotline. Regional banks have strict protocols for reporting compliance violations. I explained the situation professionally. Senior compliance officer having an affair with a colleague and meeting with suspicious financial contacts. The hotline operator took detailed notes and said they'd forward everything to the appropriate investigators. Asked me to send any evidence to their secure tip system. I uploaded the surveillance photos showing Vanessa and Marcus with the offshore banking specialist. Timestamps, license plates, restaurant receipts that Rodriguez had recovered. Everything documented their relationship and suspicious meetings. Within hours, I got a call back from bank security. They were very interested in the offshore banking connection. Apparently, they'd been tracking unusual activity patterns, and my information confirmed their suspicions. Second call was to my divorce lawyer. Sent him copies of everything. Told him to start preparing papers but wait for my signal before filing. I wanted maximum damage and perfect timing. Third call was to Rodriguez. Told him to maintain surveillance through the weekend. I had a feeling things were about to get interesting. Friday evening, Vanessa and Marcus came home giddy with excitement. They'd apparently finalized some plan at work and were celebrating with champagne. Expensive stuff from my wine collection. I played the supportive husband, asked about their good news. They made up some story about a successful audit that was complete bullshit, but I smiled and congratulated them anyway. That night, I heard them in the guest room. Not even trying to be quiet anymore. Complete disrespect in my own house. Saturday morning, I woke up before dawn and drove to a job site. Needed to think, and being around concrete and steel always cleared my head. Plus, I wanted to be far away when everything went down. Around 9 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Text from Vanessa asking where I was. Missed calls. Voicemails getting progressively more panicked. I ignored everything and kept working. Let them figure out their own problems. Around 11, Rodriguez called. Federal agents had arrived at our house with local law enforcement backup. Both Vanessa and Marcus had been arrested on federal banking fraud charges. The investigation had been ongoing for weeks, and my information was the final piece they needed. Turns out the offshore banker Rodriguez had photographed was already under federal surveillance. When Vanessa and Marcus started meeting with him, it triggered automatic monitoring of their activities. My surveillance photos just confirmed what federal investigators already suspected. They'd been planning to transfer $2.8 million to offshore accounts Monday morning. Would have worked too if I hadn't blown up their spot. I drove home to find police cars in my driveway and neighbors gawking from their yards. Vanessa was in handcuffs being loaded into a squad car. She saw my truck and started screaming about how I'd ruined everything. Marcus was already gone. Probably processed at the station by then. Lead detective introduced himself and explained what had happened. Said they'd been investigating suspicious activity at the bank, and my information had confirmed their suspicions. Thanked me for being a good citizen. I played the shocked husband perfectly. Said I'd noticed them working late, but never imagined anything criminal. Offered full cooperation with their investigation. Detectives said they'd need to search the house for evidence, but I was free to stay or leave. I chose to leave. Didn't want to watch them tear apart the guest room where my wife had been screwing her accomplice. Spent the afternoon at my lawyer's office finalizing divorce papers. With criminal charges pending and clear evidence of infidelity, I'd get everything in the settlement. House, business assets, even her retirement accounts, since she'd violated our prenup by committing felonies. My lawyer was impressed by the evidence package, said he'd never seen such thorough documentation of marital misconduct. Rodriguez had really outdone himself. Monday morning, the bank's internal investigation team called me. Both Vanessa and Marcus had been terminated immediately. Federal charges meant automatic termination under banking regulations. They'd never work in financial services again, with felony convictions pending. The bank was also cooperating fully with federal investigators. My evidence had helped prevent what could have been a major theft, though the exact amounts were still being calculated by forensic accountants. Tuesday, the local news picked up the story. Bank executives arrested for embezzlement scheme. Photos of Vanessa and Marcus in handcuffs being perp-walked. My name wasn't mentioned, but anyone who knew us would connect the dots. My phone exploded with calls from friends and family. Everyone wanted to know if I was okay, if I needed anything, if they could help somehow. I appreciated the support, but honestly, I was fine. Better than fine. I'd eliminated 2 major problems from my life with surgical precision. Vanessa made bail Wednesday, but had nowhere to go. Her parents wouldn't take her after the scandal. Her fancy friends stopped returning calls. She ended up in some extended stay motel across town. She tried calling me repeatedly, but I'd changed my number. My lawyer handled all communication through official channels, clean and professional. The divorce took 4 months to finalize, but it was straightforward. Judge wasn't sympathetic to someone facing federal fraud charges while cheating on their spouse. I kept the house, the business, everything that mattered. The prenup helped, since it had a standard infidelity clause, but the federal charges made everything simpler. Hard to argue for spousal support when you're headed to federal prison. Marcus fared even worse. Lost his job, his professional licenses, his social standing. Word travels fast in banking circles. He'd never recover from this kind of scandal. His ex-wife also came after him for emergency custody of their kids, said she wouldn't expose them to a criminal father. Judge agreed and terminated his visitation rights pending resolution of the charges. So in 1 week, both these idiots went from planning their wealthy future together to facing prison time and financial ruin. All because they thought they were smarter than the blue-collar guy who just hits things with hammers. The irony is beautiful. Vanessa always looked down on construction work, but my business skills are what destroyed her. Reading people, gathering intelligence, strategic planning, decisive action. Same principles whether you're building foundations or demolishing careers. 6 months later, I'm doing better than ever. Business expanded into 3 new markets, bought a beach house for weekend getaways. Dating a veterinarian who actually respects what I do for a living. Vanessa got 18 months federal time and 5 years probation. Marcus got 2 years because he was technically the mastermind. Both have to pay full restitution, which will keep them broke for decades. Best part is they blame each other for everything. Turns out loyalty doesn't last long when federal prosecutors start offering plea deals. They completely turned on each other trying to minimize their own sentences. Last I heard, Vanessa was working retail at some department store. Criminal record makes professional employment basically impossible. She's living in a studio apartment and taking the bus to work. Marcus moved back in with his parents in another state. 40-year-old Harvard MBA, getting driven to his gas station job by his mother. Poetic justice. Sometimes people ask if I feel bad about ruining their lives so completely. Honestly, no. They made their choices. Had an affair in my house, planned to steal millions, treated me like garbage for months. I just made sure they faced appropriate consequences for their actions. Prison time, financial ruin, professional disgrace. Seems proportional to me. The key lesson here is never underestimate people based on their job title. Vanessa thought construction workers were too dumb to catch sophisticated, white-collar criminals. Wrong assumption. When you build things for a living, you learn to plan ahead, use the right tools, and finish the job properly. Same approach works whether you're pouring concrete or destroying cheaters. Rodriguez still does work for my company occasionally, says it was the most satisfying case of his career. Watching entitled criminals get exactly what they deserved. Sometimes I drive by that department store where Vanessa works. Never go in, but it's nice knowing she's folding clothes for minimum wage while I'm building million-dollar projects.